What's the most depressing meal you've ever eaten? Christmas Eve I was working late. Broke and tired. I had gas station cheeseburgers and chips that were on sale because they were about to expire. When I called to say hello to my mother, she mentioned how she gave some prime rib to her dog. I love gas station cheeseburgers. I'm not into that stereotypical lettuce, tomatoes, mayo, gross, and pickles kind of burger that you'll get at Burger King or Wendy's. I'm a simple man. I enjoy a simple burger that consists solely of cheese and ketchup. The gas station ones are great greasy junk food. I kept a tough schedule as a college student, and I remember one night I was working my part-time job in the library. The shift was from 5-9 p.m. and I'd had classes all morning and my internship all afternoon. At some point during my shift I realized I hadn't eaten all day and managed to scrounge an old, flattened granola bar from my bag. I couldn't take a break and I wasn't allowed to eat at the desk, so I hid under a bin of DVDs and scarfed down that disgusting, dry oat patty like a feral raccoon enjoying a snack under a dumpster. Not my finest moment or meal. I'm really sorry you had a crappy day, but I'm in stitches thinking of that image. I imagine you squatting and ferociously nibbling at the granola bar with a manic overbite, squarely looking around for your supervisor. Hope you got to eat well later that night. The last thing my mother ever cooked for me, I ate it almost a week after she died. I didn't want to waste it, but I knew once I ate it, she'd really be gone. The pain never goes away, it just gets smaller and smaller until you can shove it away and it doesn't sit on you anymore. I think this is the most depressing one. You should learn her recipes so you can pass it along to your children. This is what your grandma used to cook, that way she can never truly be gone. Sitting with the kids, laughing about their day, encouraging them to eat their dinner so they'll have energy tomorrow. Then after they're in bed eating the leftovers off their plates and filling up on tap water because I didn't have enough money to feed all of us. And I wanted to protect them from knowing that I had failed. The very fact that they ate dinner at night is evidence that you certainly did not fail. You sacrificed for your children. That's exactly what a good parent does. Times can be very, very tough, and when times are that tough, what separates the good parents from the failed ones is who the parents put first. Dry oatmeal, the Quaker brand that comes in the little brown packets. I couldn't be bothered to heat it up or even add water, so I just ate it out of the packet. Dry Quaker oatmeal was a treasured treat of mine in elementary school, by choice. So were microwaved marshmallows. 24 years old. Went to stay with my fiancée and her family for Christmas. She dumps me on Christmas morning cause reasons. I lived about 90 minutes away in another town. Went home. No dog because in kennels for the holidays because I was meant to be away. Flatmates are away. Family are all out of town on holiday. Christmas dinner was leftovers from the back of the fridge. Alone. Not even any booze to numb the pain. Worst meal of my life. I'm sorry. That sounds terrible. I didn't have it, but my dad had a Whopper on T steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Thanksgiving Day because he couldn't attend the nice Thanksgiving dinner because he forgot his blazer. That seems like dumb reason for him to not be let in. I once talked to this girl online dating for quite a while. She told me to meet her at a pub etc. But she texted that she was running late so had me order for her. So I did. But never showed after I waited with food on the table for about 30 minutes. So I ate her Caesar wrap the next day for lunch at home by myself and never heard from her again. I'll just assume she was hit by a bus, even though my town doesn't have buses. She was probably a 350-pound, hairy, 48 years old dude. My 25th birthday. It was 1977 and the whole country was in the midst of the energy crisis, so that Friday Carter had ordered offices closed and only heated to 35 degrees. Everyone got a day off. But my new boss had a big trial going on in Washington DC and needed me to go into the office long enough to transcribe tapes he was having flown and that a cab driver would deliver from the airport. It was 2 degrees outside and there was a couple feet of snow on the ground, and the bus I took to work, an hour-long trip, had no heat. Only one security guard was in the building when I got there, and I typed the brief as fast as I could when it finally arrived after I'd sat there freezing for 2 hours. All through this, I knew my family was preparing a great dinner for me, so as soon as I was done, things would be nice. Ham, mashed potatoes, cauliflower with cheese sauce and angel food cake. Left the office and the bus back home not only didn't have heat, it had some of the windows stuck open. Shivering all the way home, I dreamed of the great dinner I'd soon have. I got to my mother's and it turned out she and my dad had a huge fight, and she and my snotty teenage sister had their bags packed and planned on coming home with me. No dinner was cooked or even anticipated. We got carry-out chili and went back to my apartment where my sister fussed about everything, insulted me all evening, and proceeded to remove all my dishes from the cabinets and rewash them because she wasn't sure they were clean enough to suit her. Mother sat and cried. Turned out dad was running around on her, and this was the first of several weekends where he'd pick a fight and storm off on a Friday and stay gone all weekend. Worst birthday ever. I'm so sorry. I hope things got better for you. New Year's Eve between 2013 and 2014. McDonald's. Eaten by me, my uncle, my parents, and a neighbor in a house with a dying man. My grandfather was dying of end-stage liver cirrhosis, Parkinson's disease, and a blood clot. He was on hospice care in his own home. We couldn't afford a full-time caregiver, so me and my uncle were volunteered to care for him as he died. If New Year's rolls around, we share a depressing meal together and try to be of good cheer, but it didn't work. Volunteered. Thanks. Mine now. One time in college I was returning to my dorm room late at night, and I was really hungry, but I didn't have any cash for the vending machine, nor any means of transportation to the nearest fast food joint. Sure enough, there was a pizza box sitting atop the trash can in the hallway, the box not being big enough for the can. I opened it up and I found 2 entire slices of pepperoni pizza, which I ate then and there. It filled me up, but I felt like a dang hobo. I was invited to Thanksgiving dinner at my brother's house. His wife asked me to bring crescent rolls. I was having a hard time financially that year, and my long-term boyfriend had recently been diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. At the time, I had about $3 to my name. I couldn't afford crescent rolls, so I bought 2 packs of Kroger Brown and Serve rolls for $1.99. My sister-in-law was quite visibly annoyed and kept mentioning all day long how much she was craving crescent rolls. The frick. If she really wanted those rolls, she could have just bought it for herself. I don't get why people do this. Please explain to me. Driving back from Disney World, eating a fabulous dinner of fresh shrimp, oysters, and fish overlooking the sun setting on the Panama City Bay. The family of 6 all silently sobbing at the table because we were just told the family dog of 13 years died. We miss you, Maggie, or mac and cheese made with only water, and 1 bag of popcorn. That had to last a week until mom got food stamps. Both sad for different reasons and make me thankful for the life and love that I now have. Literally from feast to famine. Ran out of food in my apartment and didn't feel like going shopping since it was 1 AM. Found taco shells which I promptly heated in the oven, then topped them with peanut butter. That doesn't sound too awful. Ate a $5 pizza at 10:30 at night in the floor of an empty room that had earlier been a bedroom. We were sitting on cot mattresses and it was the last night we had in the house before we had to be out. It was the day after Christmas. Assuming that $5 pizza was Little Caesars makes it even worse. During basic training in the army, we were doing our first week under full field conditions. To get our food we had to sneak up to a position and steal our combat rations. The combat rations in the IDF are pretty crappy, but there were some dried fruit pieces and olives and stuff that could be pleasant. The only truly gross thing that no one would eat was the canned meat. We stole our food and got ready to eat when we noticed the box had been tampered with. Our sergeant had gone and pulled everything out except the canned meat. Typical sergeant. I put ketchup and mustard on a hot dog bun and ate it with no hot dog once. It's like the last bite but for the whole thing. I love the last bite, but I'm a bit skeptical about this. The last lasagna made by my stepmom. She was adorable, sweet, and always treated me like one of her own, always making sure I had enough food. Since I lived 2 cities away, their house was too small, and my dad spent half the time there. half the time at my house when I was a teen, since it would take him 3 hours to get to work from mine, versus hers, 20 minutes. She died on a drive-by shootout, on a night I was supposed to go join them for dinner. I gave them a maybe, and ended up spending the night at my boyfriend's, ignoring my phone lighting up because we were shagging, and when done, went for the phone, got the news and in shock, just walked out to the living room, totally naked, where my, then, boyfriend's roommate and his date were watching a movie. In the middle of the night, went for the bathroom and took a cold shower, to get ready to handle everything, completely oblivious of the fact that I just flashed them both when I walked by. I was super depressed and ate an entire box of off-brand mac and cheese raw with nothing but a cool glass of water and a steady flow of tears to wash it down. Good times. I remember how we got our first microwave when I was little. I was so excited, because I loved melted cheese on top a piece of bread. Well, we did not have any bread that day and for some reason I didn't even use a plate, but I just put a slice of cheese inside the microwave and used a knife to get the cheese out and ate it. 9/10 would recommend. I went camping and woke up extremely hungover one morning. I was starving but really didn't want to try and cook anything, so I settled for canned chicken breast and crackers. It was terrible. The smell of the chicken juice should have been my first warning. I think I know what you mean. Canned chicken always smells like tuna to me, to the point where I think that there's actually tuna in it. I always refused to eat it growing up. I hate tuna, unless it's the expensive stuff, then it's just meh. My wife doesn't like Famous Dave's and she was gone one weekend, so know what I got. Famous Dave's. I sat waiting game for my barbecue goodness to take home, talking to the person about how I never get it and all. I get home and dig in and it was just meh. So disappointed and let down. TLDR, Famous Dave's I Rochester MN isn't that good. I once booked a flight to Rochester, MNBC. I had no idea there was a Rochester outside of Nye. Why have two Rochester airports? Tortilla wrap with Kraft singles. Threw in uncooked ramen noodles for the crunch factor. My poor man's equivalent to the crispy chicken wraps that pretty much every restaurant does now. Except, it had no chicken. Just chicken flavoring from the noodles. I actually kinda want to try this with good cheese now. Christmas in NYC. Too broke, not enough vacation to travel and no friends in the city yet. The holiday consisted of a couple days worth of Little Caesars and whiskey. Canned tuna mixed with mayo packets from some fast food place and sriracha on saltine crackers. I actually like it and I don't eat it because I'm poor. But after I told my mom that's what I was eating during a phone call, all the presents I get for birthdays and Christmas is food related. Well, I guess I don't mind, and I still have a crap load of Pepperidge Farm sausages and cheeses she sent me for Christmas. Years ago, I was living in a house with a few other poor 20-somethings. Christmas came and every person's parents sent summer sausage and cheese. It's all we ate for 2 weeks. When I was a kid we had Thanksgiving dinner in the hospital cafeteria where my dad was working late. I was one sad little camper. At least you were together. Every last one of my meal this week. I'm usually pretty proud about the way I eat. I like to plan my meals and I take pleasure and pride when I come out of the grocery store with a nice variety of healthy and fresh products. But this week I'm poor because my job was closed during the holidays, and after 2 weeks without pay, the first pay I got was for only 1 week of work. So I've been eating like a college student again and it is super depressing. I had a rice sandwich once. I was super poor but didn't want to ask my family for help because it was the first time I moved out. It really hit me hard that I fell that low. Much better today. Up to the cheapest meat and some hot sauce. A salad. I had to lose a few pounds and I didn't know yet that dieting is focused more on eating the right food and in regulation, and that it did not mean starvation and depriving myself of the good stuff. I sat there chewing my greens, feeling like a miserable cow grazing alone in a pasture. I was living with my parents after college and had a hankering for Peking duck. I spent the weekend getting the duck. buying the equipment to correctly hang it in preparation, basting the skin with honey, and making the little pancakes by hand. It wasn't until I took it out of the oven that I realized I had no one to share it with. I sat by myself in the dimly lit kitchen and could only eat a few bites before I was so disgusted with myself I threw the rest away. 2 months later I moved across the country and started a new life. To this day I still hate Peking duck. I work at a diner-like thing, and we are able to eat leftover stuff that is either too small to serve, or something like leftover fries. I once had a lunch that consisted of half of a mozzarella stick and 2 fries. We were at an Applebee's in Tucson, AZ in the winter of 1995. My GF and I were having an Applebee's meal. You get what you pay for, right? At the next table was this young couple with an infant in the high chair. Kid was probably 14-16 months old, and they were going over their divorce paperwork. They were having issues settling the property or whatever, and they'd take a break from snarling insults at each other to reach over and Gucci goo the baby. Dunno why, but it was incredibly depressing. Probably every meal I've been eating since I moved to a different country for work. I don't know anyone here, so most of my meals are eaten alone. Breakfast on the train to work or at my office desk since I don't have time in the morning to eat it at home. Lunch mostly alone since I'm not close with anyone at work. Dinner alone at home since me and my housemates get off from work at different times. I'm not close with them too. I miss the days when I look forward to eating a home cooked meal shared with my family back home. I am sorry. I hope it gets less lonely. I ate a plate of spaghetti while on shrooms without knowing it was a terrible thing to do. I ended up becoming literally depressed and sobbing in my bed alone from the bad trip that ensued. Seriously, never eat spaghetti on shrooms. It'll feel like you ate a bowling ball made of bad feelings. Worked at a restaurant. I didn't have enough money for groceries and rent. Any food my tables left on the plate I would bag up when no one was looking. One time, I left the to-go bag of leftovers in a shelf and my manager threw it away. I was really hungry that night too. Have done this as well back in high school. Had a part-time job as a waitress after school and on weekends. Grew up in a really poor household. Used to bring leftovers home all the time. Was the only time I remember eating steak or roast growing up. After I got unceremoniously dumped by my abusive ex, I spent a week lying in bed naked, not eating, not doing anything, only using downstairs to go pee and get water. My depression had come back full throttle and there was no way I was going to get anything done for a long while. Finally one of my flatmates noticed and popped her head in one morning and said, "Have you eaten anything? Cause I got some stuff." She chucked a bag of Skittles and a warm Diet Pepsi onto the foot of my bed. It took me a good few hours to work up the motivation to even look at them, and the Pepsi almost made me puke. This is also my answer from the "what's the fattest thing you've ever done" thread from while back. I buttered some cheese. I had only a little money left for the last week of the month, so I just picked up some cheap veggies to cook with some mince that I already had. The intention was to cook a large meal to last for the whole week. Well, I had a brain fart and forgot to brown the mince before I mixed in a whole lot of liquid, and so I ended up just having to boil this watered down mince until it was cooked enough to eat. It was really gross and it was all I had to eat for that week. My flatmates all made fun of me. A large tub of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, mashed potato and gravy. I was out of town for work and I had tonsillitis, and this was about the only food I could eat without it feeling like I was swallowing razor blades. I lost some weight that week. Worked retail overnight Thanksgiving, a state away from my family and friends. I thought it would be funny to make a Cornish game hen, like a mini turkey. It was sad and lonely. The night before my 15th birthday, my very first girlfriend dumped me. I felt too sick from bullying all night to eat anything until dinner time. The shrimp Alfredo felt like glue in my mouth that night, and I didn't stay up for cake. When I first moved out of the house, I was living with some guys I knew from high school. They never hung around and instead spent most of their time at their folks' place. I guess they thought that was a good enough reason not to pay any bills. Anyway, I got stuck paying all the bills with a low-paying job, leaving me to eat bread that I got free from the bread dock, with mayo on it for flavor. I moved pretty quickly after that. Frick those guys. A can of turkey chili, no beans. It wasn't depressing because of what it was, but because of how happy I was to eat it. 2009 New Year's Eve and me and my housemates were broke as heck. We shared leftovers of a KFC bucket that was given to us by a kind stranger that we met on the bus station. Once I was super hungry, but I had already spent a ton of money on food that weekend, so I stayed at home and ate seaweed garnish flakes out of the bag. Was depressed in university, hadn't eaten for 3 days. I was literally just laying on my bed for 3 days straight, listened to music without enjoying it, browsed the internet without any purpose or fulfillment, even watched old anime half asleep half awake, not knowing what's going on. The leftovers from the beans and rice I'd cooked and eaten 3 days ago weren't put in the fridge. The rice became sticky and foul, while the beans clearly tasted like they'd started to go bad. I still ate the rice plus beans, continued with the depressed doing nothing for a few days, then bought a Subway sandwich, ended up not wanting to eat it when I got home, and ate it cold and soggy the next morning. This sort of thing happened intermittently throughout my time at university over 3 years. Listened to music without enjoying it, browsed the internet without any purpose or fulfillment, even watched old anime half asleep half awake, not knowing what's going on. I just realized that this is me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.